Chapter 9:19. Along the way, their hands never left each other. Both of them had good stamina and did not stop along the way. Other people would take more than 2 hours to climb to the top of the mountain, but the two of them only took 1.5 hours. When they reached the top of the mountain, Xia Jinyuan said softly, "G3 is here. 8 o'clock straight ahead. Let's go over." G3 was wearing a brand new set of sportswear and was holding a pair of binoculars rented from a scenic spot. Through the binoculars, he saw Q King and Yi Qin walking over side by side. K7's message was cut off. He sent a fake message in the early hours of the morning. As the two of them walked over, G3's hoarse voice could be heard. With Yi Qin on guard, he quickly conversed with Xia Jinyuan. T6 contacted me through K7. He and V8 are already on their way. The two of them had only exchanged a few words when Yi Qin suddenly grabbed Xia Jinyuan's arm and pointed to the cable car. "Xia Jinyuan, let's take the cable car. I'm a little cold and want to go down the mountain." His finger gently drew on Xia Jinyuan's arm and wrote the word Z. Ho Z had left someone at the top of the mountain. It didn't seem like they were there to keep watch, but more like to observe. That's right, they were there to see who Xia Jinyuan would meet. Ho Z wanted to see who Xia Jinyuan would meet. Perhaps he could guess what position the proud Xia Jinyuan, who was ranked 6th on the list of family Xia, held in the military every time Xia Yiwei mentioned him. He just wanted to take a look and didn't have any ill intentions. Who would have known that Xia Jinyuan was a Special Forces soldier, and the person he was meeting was also a Special Forces soldier? Furthermore, Yi Qin was on guard during their meeting. How could anyone have seen them? He had noticed something strange and left early on. You didn't see him? Ho Zi, who was playing golf with his friends, received a call from the top of the mountain. Hearing this, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he instructed, "Forget it, you guys don't have to look for her." He didn't even see anyone. The people he sent out were no match for family Xia's 6th brother. Not to mention family Xia's 6th brother, even the little girl beside him was very powerful. He had asked his men to walk around the mountain on a whim. Since they didn't find anything, there was no need to look for it. It did not take long for the cable car to travel from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the mountain. G3 was the first to get off and blended into the crowd of tourists. In the blink of an eye, he walked out of Yi Qian's sight. She could not help but ask Xia Jinyuan, "Did he leave?" "No, wait for us in front. You go and drive." Xia Jinyuan squeezed her hand. Like an ordinary couple, he openly held his girlfriend's hand and walked down the mountain. "Before we get rid of this snake following us, G3 will always be with us. He's in the dark while we're in the light." Yi Qian nodded gently. In the sparse crowd, she tried her best to get closer to Xia Jinyuan so that her words would not be overheard by others. "The three of us should work together to solve the problem in Nan province as soon as possible so that you guys can leave as soon as possible. Okay, no later than tomorrow night. So, little fox, from now until tomorrow morning, you'll have to stay by my side for about 48 hours. Let me see if you've regressed within 48 hours. You haven't trained for more than 10 days since you came back from Ba." It was easy for her to become rusty if she did not train for more than 10 days after her hand was grazed by a bullet. She did not train with the soldiers, but she had been training under Principal Chen's arrangement all this time. She raised her eyebrows and her beautiful chin slightly. "It's just that I didn't increase the amount of training. My daily basic training is 365 days, and it won't be interrupted no matter what." Chapter 9:20. Not even on special days? Looking at her smiling face that was like a flower and her eyebrows that were filled with sunshine, Major Xia inadvertently started to become energetic again. This energy was like the tip of a bamboo shoot that emerged from the spring soil. It could not be broken even if one pinched it, and it grew day by day. Yi Qin unceremoniously elbowed him in the chest, causing Major Xia to clutch his chest and twist slightly. "I was wrong, I was wrong, I was wrong." Despite the pain, he quickly grabbed her hand and did not let go. He softly begged for mercy. "I was really wrong, I deserve to be hit. But I didn't mean anything else, I was just concerned. Don't all girls have special days? You're still growing, you can be harsh on yourself, but on special days, you really don't have to. Xia Jinyuan, I want to tape your mouth shut. Yi Qian forcefully shook off his hand, her pink face flushed red, as if she was angry. But in her anger, her frown and smile made passers-by think that she was an angry girlfriend acting coquettishly with her boyfriend. Xia Jinyuan's voice became softer and warmer. It's not too late for you to seal it when we're back in the room. Now is not the time. G3 is in front. He'll laugh at me if he sees it. Laugh at you for what? Yi Qian snorted and glared at him coquettishly. Does he dare to laugh at you? It was a good sign that she was already protecting him before they were even together. Xia Jinyuan's smile deepened. He did not realize that in his deep eyes, there was an almost unconditional affection for her. Yes, he doesn't dare to laugh. If he dares to laugh, your fists won't let him off. That's not what I meant. I meant that he doesn't dare to laugh at you because of your status. Yi Qian was angered by his twisted logic. Just you wait, there will be a good day for him. Don't talk about things that make me embarrassed. If you do, I'll remember it. Sooner or later, I'll settle the score with you. This threat was big enough. Xia Jinyuan, who understood the situation, immediately shut up and naturally changed the topic. Silly, no matter what our status is, he won't laugh. He'll only give us his blessings. Although her chest was still aching, it could not beat the sweetness in her heart. It was so sweet that her heart felt as if it had brewed honey from 100 flowers, fragrant and sweet. Holding her hand tightly, he strode forward and said in a low and deep voice, as if he was making an oath, "We'll make them give us their blessings and never let go of each other's hands. You are my lover and my comrade." Yes, you are my lover and my comrade. I have to thank you for holding my hand throughout the journey, teaching me step by step. Xia Jinyuan, I'm really grateful to you. Holding his slender and broad hand, Yi Jian walked out with her head held high. She was as cold as the young major beside her. She hoped that they would continue to walk together like this, through all the hardships, and never leave each other. At this moment, she was indeed hoping for that. Unknowingly, they caught up with G3 again. The three of them walked at a moderate pace and even communicated secretly when no one was paying attention. When they reached the foot of the mountain, Yi Qian said to Xia Jinyuan, "I'll get the car. Wait for me." G3 also knew that she could drive. After Yi Qian left, G3, who was standing under a tree, said to Xia Jinyuan, who was standing in front of him with his hands in his pockets, "Yi Qian seems to know something. Did you tell her?" Chapter 9:21. She doesn't know who we killed, but she knows everything. Xia Jinyuan looked at the end of the decapitation operation and quickly separated from his comrades. He raised his fist and smiled. "Congratulations." G3 extended his fist. After the two men's fists lightly bumped, G3 understood. The fact that the military agreed to let Yi Jian join must have something to do with you. Otherwise, they wouldn't let her join such a dangerous mission. That's right, but I really didn't tell her before. Xia Jinyuan tapped his head, and the smile in his eyes was brighter than the blue sky. She's very smart. I only told her that I was changing my clothes along the way, but she suddenly reacted so quickly that I almost told her everything. G3 was speechless. Why did he sound like he was showing off? After a moment of silence, he said, "J5 is recuperating." This time, the team suffered a heavy loss. After this is over, think of a way to get someone to write the 10,000-word report. Let K7 do it. Although he's a forensic doctor, he's very logical. Let him write it. He hadn't found anyone yet, but he had already agreed to let him write the report. Of course, he also hoped that his comrade could return safely. There were some words that couldn't be said while crying like a girl. Saying it in a different way would make him feel much better. We're all waiting for him to come back and write it. The car is here. There's good stuff in it. Get in the car and check it out. Yi Qian picked them up for us. She finished picking them out in 5 minutes. The sound of a car engine came from afar. A white imported Mercedes-Benz was driven over by Yi Qian. An old man crossed the road. Xia Jinyuan saw that she stopped steadily and gave way to the old man out of courtesy. G3's gaze landed on Yi Qian, who was sitting in the car. A faint smile appeared on his face. She's very strong and used to our life. King, it was the right choice to take action against a girl like her. Other girls can't accept our life, but Yi Qian can. Moreover, she will work hard to integrate herself into our lives. If I meet such a girl, even if she has a boyfriend, I will snatch her away. Xia Jinyuan chuckled softly and said, after the matter in southern province is settled, we have to prepare some masks for our trip to the desert. Last time, I inhaled a little too much dust and sand. I can still cough out sand after 2 days back. After settling the domestic affairs, Xia Jinyuan needed to go to a country near the desert where there was little rain. The city's plumbing was well designed, but it was a little too short, which made them feel a little uncomfortable. If you don't find it tiring to carry me, that's totally fine. After G3 finished speaking, he saw the car drive over again. After seeing the brand of the car clearly, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. What kind of friend did you make? How generous. If nothing goes wrong, we'll start racing tonight. We need a good car. Xia Jinyuan didn't even let Yi Qian get out of the driver's seat. He opened the back door and bent over to get in. G3 followed behind him. Ho Zi's people only appeared at the top of the mountain. When Yi Qian took the car keys, Ho Zi's most valued assistant said, Brother Z said that he didn't mean any harm. He just wanted to take a look. If he did, how could he have so generously borrowed such a luxurious car? Please tell Brother Z that Lao Lu and I believe in him. Yi Qian's reply was so straightforward that Ho Zi, who was playing shooting with his friends, burst out laughing when he heard his assistant's message. Chapter 9:22. Interesting, this young lady is indeed interesting. Her heart is extraordinarily big, and she has the boldness to achieve great things without bothering about trifles. This young lady does not have a family background, but in terms of character, she is definitely worthy of Xia Jinyuan. After getting into the car, Yi Qian relayed the message from Ho Zi to Xia Jinyuan. It seems like Brother Z is starting to make preparations. I wonder if there are any movements in the city? Do you want to contact him? No, he will confirm if there are any movements. He will contact me after he confirms. After getting into the car, Xia Jinyuan was no longer Xia Jinyuan's boyfriend, but a soldier who fought for the country. His gaze was piercingly cold and carried a murderous intent. There are some goods in the travel bag in the back. G3, take a look. The travel bag containing the guns was placed in the back seat. G3 unzipped it and his eyes lit up. Good heavens, there are a total of 9 pistols. 2 Desert Eagles, 2 M9S, 3 Colt M2000 pistols, and 2 HKP-7 M8S. They were all top-notch pistols. They are all good stuff. King, your friend has good taste, but there is also a big problem. Illegal possession and illegal possession of firearms and ammunition is a violation of firearms regulations. A prison term of 3 to 7 years is inevitable. G3's voice sounded like gravel grinding on gravel from the back seat, and there was a hint of coldness in his voice. Xia Jinyuan turned around and looked at G3, who obviously had "very satisfied" written on his face and was secretly warning him. He smiled and said, it is indeed a big problem for him to risk his life to get the guns for the 3 of us. Even the military knows about it. I don't care if the military knows about it or not. I only care about you. G3 fiddled with each gun before putting them back into the travel bag. He stared coldly at Xia Jinyuan. I only care about you. I don't care about anyone else. I only care about you because you are my comrade. Knowing but not reporting is also a crime. Yi Qian tightened her grip on the steering wheel. What was G3 worried about? She had been worried about it before. Knowing and not reporting it was also a crime. Xia Jinyuan knew that Ho Zi had a gun, but he concealed it. This was a crime. The few tails that I left in Hongkou City yesterday should have already entered the southern province. Check their tracks first. You can have a good rest now. I will take care of things that have nothing to do with our mission. Xia Jinyuan knew what his comrade was worried about. He did not need to deal with these things. Ho Zi would naturally take care of it. Yi Jian's straightened back gradually relaxed. She knew that Ho Zi would deal with it, but she was afraid that G3 would mention in the report that they were carrying out a mission in the southern province and the source of the guns and ammunition. Xia Jinyuan would definitely be brought in for questioning. Now that even the military knew about it, there was no such thing as Xia Jinyuan. G3, who was no longer worried about the source of the guns, got into the car and closed his eyes. The tracks are easy to check. Check the provincial records. I will take a nap. Looking at King Q's refreshed appearance, it was obvious that he had slept soundly last night. But he didn't. Last night, he had walked for half the night before sitting in the county minibus that was still making clanking sounds. He had to take a nap to recover his energy. Yi Qian glanced at him. G3's skin was a healthy wheat color. The dark circles under his eyes were not as obvious as Xia Jinyuan's, but the tiredness on his face was obvious after he got into the car. Just like Xia Jinyuan, he did not have a good rest. Go to sleep. Yi Qian and I will watch over you. K7 was missing and J5 was recovering. Although the mission was successful, they had paid a high price. Chapter 923. The Snowfield Brigade members who were scattered all over the country reported their situation after their condition stabilized. The military also received their reports and knew that there was a problem with K7's whereabouts. But the military did not take any action because they could not take any action. The foreign snake had entered the country, and there were also people monitoring the movements of the military. The spies operating underground could also appear at any time. For the sake of caution, the military decided to wait and see. With the Shuiyu regiment, a sharp sword that could both attack and defend, the Central Army believed in their abilities. This special unit was responsible for all the special forces. They were the country's shield and spear. If there was an accident, they had enough ability to deal with it. Yi Qian drove towards the city center. Bureau Chief Yang, who had been looking for her, had sent a few groups of people to look for her. The school had sent people to every place Yi Qian usually went to, such as the library, etc. They even sent people to the single-player arcade on the streets to look for her. Yang Heng, see where else she goes? Go and look for her personally. Bureau Chief Yang had already called home to look for Yi Qian. He needed her to go to the Transportation Bureau again. Yang Heng, who was helping Mother Yang prepare dinner at home, frowned. He thought for a while and said, Dad, Yi Jian and I see each other most often in school. Our relationship is not as deep as you think. I really can't tell you. His son did not know. Bureau Chief Yang immediately hung up the phone and called Principal Chao. He could only ask the principal if he could find Yi Qian. Yang Heng hung up the phone and looked up. He saw his aunt frowning and looking at him with a serious expression. Aunt, what happened to you? What happened? Isn't she still not awake? Angie, President Song's daughter, had been suffering from jet lag since she got off the plane. She couldn't take it anymore and fell asleep after lunch. Why is your dad looking for Yi Qian? Is it a good thing or a bad thing? Yi Qian is my savior now. I have to protect her. President Song was still afraid that his brother-in-law would call to make trouble. As he spoke, he picked up the phone and was about to call back. Yang Heng quickly hung up the phone and said with a smile, No, the Bureau is facing a problem and they need Yi Qian to help them. She has a good memory and my dad knows that. Even if they ask her for help, there won't be any trouble. The Yang family and the Song family all found out that Yi Qian had saved President Song's life. Yang Heng's grandmother patted her chest, her heart racing. She took her daughter's hand and said, He's your lucky star. He saved you from disaster. Ting Lan, you have to thank him properly. You have to thank him properly, okay? Old people tended to be a little superstitious. Yi Qian had snatched the steering wheel and saved Xiao Song. The old man thought that he was his daughter's lucky star and their family's lucky star. You're not lying to me, are you? Why would your father need Yi Qian's help? What could she do to help? This won't do. I have to call your father. President Song was a man of his word. He was used to being a man of his word. If he was worried, he could not just listen to others. He had to find out for himself. Yang Heng knew his aunt's temper. He took his hand away from the phone and said, Go ahead. But the line might be busy. Chapter 924. He was looking for Yi Qian everywhere. Was his father planning to treat Yi Qian as a non-staff member? He should at least pay Yi Qian a salary. He couldn't let Yi Qian work for him for free. Auntie, can you tell my father that he always asks Yi Qian to do things for him and ask him to pay her a salary? Director Song, who was on the other end of the call, immediately smiled. You really know how to help your classmate. Okay, I'll pass the message to you. He dialed back. Just as Yang Heng said, the line was busy. Director Song could only call back later. Director Yang was on the phone with Principal Chow. After explaining his intentions, Principal Chow laughed heartily. You can only look for me if you want to find Yi Qian. Otherwise, you might not be able to find her even if you turn the entire southern province upside down. He had sent a few groups of people to look for her, but all the hotel receptionists said they didn't see her. Yi Qian hadn't checked out of her room either. There were still people guarding her room to see if she would return to the hotel. Finding Yi Qian was harder than finding the governor, mayor, or principal. There was no other way. She didn't have a communication device with her and was always elusive. It was indeed difficult. Principal Chow couldn't find Yi Qian directly either. He just knew how to find Yi Qian. It wasn't until 4 p.m. that Yi Qian found out from Regiment Commander Liu that Principal Chen was looking for her. She had promised Regiment Commander Liu that she would go for training this afternoon, but she didn't go. She should at least give him a call. From Principal Chow to Uncle Chen to Regiment Commander Liu, Yi Qian finally called Director Yang. Xiao Yi, can you come to the Transportation Bureau right now? There's an emergency and I need your help. A car accident isn't a simple one. I'm afraid the driver saw someone he shouldn't have seen. Director Yang was still worried that Yi Qian would have to think twice before coming over. He simply told Yi Qian the results of the investigation so that she could be prepared. Yi Qian looked at Xia Jinyuan, who was taking off his suit jacket and putting it on the coat rack. She raised her eyebrows and whispered, "How's old Guan? Did you get any confirmation from him?" He stopped breathing when he was rescued. His wife also fainted. She hasn't woken up yet. None of Old Guan's friends dared to call Old Guan's parents back in Hunan. They only called Old Guan's 2 brothers and his eldest daughter who is still in high school. Speaking of Old Guan, Director Yang's tone became heavier. We'll deal with it when his family comes. The most important thing now is to find out if it's a man-made disaster. We didn't find the silver gray car, so we wanted you to come over and confirm it. Yi Qian would definitely not let it go if it was just a simple car accident. Now that it had become a man-made accident, Yi Qian only muttered to himself for a moment before saying, "All right, I'll come over now." What's so urgent that you need to go out now? Xia Jinyuan, who had taken off his coat, was about to put it back on. He had talked for more than half an hour with G3, who had just woken up after resting for 2 hours. His voice was still deep. The curtains were not drawn, and the light in the room was dim. His elegant eyebrows were tinged with coldness. "I'll go with you." It was best if they didn't separate. The snakes, lured from Hongkou City, were confirmed to have entered Nan Province yesterday morning. These snakes were not ordinary people. They were all well-trained mercenaries. They were good at reconnaissance, killing, and assassination. How could Xia Jinyuan let Yi Qian go out alone? Chapter 925. After hanging up the phone, Yi Qian didn't answer immediately. Instead, she thought for a while and said, "I suddenly feel that the car accident I encountered in the wee hours of the morning is not as simple as it seems. Those guys came to Nan Province from Hongkou City in the wee hours of the morning, and the accident happened at the entrances of 2 highways. One is the airport highway, and the other is the highway to Hongkou City." Xia Jinyuan, who had put on his black suit jacket again, had a slight movement in his dark eyes. His handsome face, which did not reveal any emotions, was not only cold in the dimly lit room, but also looked more unpredictable. "Do you suspect that the car accident last night had something to do with them?" "I didn't connect the two before, but Director Yang just said that the driver, Old Guan, probably saw someone he shouldn't have, and that's why the accident happened. The wee hours of the morning, car accident, Hongkou City, mercenaries, death. If we look at the incidents separately, they are not connected, but if we string them together." Before Yi Qian finished speaking, Xia Jinyuan suddenly grabbed her hand. Let's go and take a look. I trust your intuition. Bring a gun just in case. Of course he trusted her intuition. A woman's sixth sense had always been much sharper than a man's, and Yi Qian had been trained as a special forces soldier, so her intuition was more accurate. When he saw her bloodied school uniform in the morning, he naturally wondered if a foreign snake had bitten Yi Qian. The incidents that seemed like they wouldn't be connected, but if they were really separated and thought about it carefully, they would be connected. Looks like we don't have to wait. I'm afraid they've already found us. Yi Qian quickly opened a paper bag and took out a set of pure cotton sportswear. 1 minute, I'll change. On the way to the hotel, Yi Qian bought a set of sportswear from a clothing store on the street so that it would be easier for him to fight. After changing out of the skirt, Yi Qian put on the sportswear that could be used as a boxer, and when he walked out of the bathroom, he didn't look as stunning as he did in a skirt. Instead, he looked clean and valiant. Compared to wearing a skirt, Yi Qian preferred the sportswear that was convenient for him to move around. G3 was also staying at the Caesar Hotel. He, who was in the dark, did not need to go over for the time being. Instead, he rested in the hotel first and took a hot bath. Now that Ho Zi would not come up to the 23rd floor of the Caesar Hotel, Xia Jinyuan had the final say. G3 said to the two of them, "Be careful." Without saying anything else, he turned around to take care of his personal hygiene. From the hotel to the traffic bureau, it only took about 40 minutes. In 1997, the southern province's provincial capital was not as busy as it would be 10 years later. There were very few private cars, and the roads were mostly filled with motorcycles and bicycles. There was no need to worry about traffic jams, and they soon arrived at the traffic bureau. Chief Yang was already waiting at the guard booth. When he saw a white car stop in front of the police station, he saw Yi Qian get out of the car. Chief Yang immediately went over to greet him personally. "Someone from the Public Security Bureau is here too. You've seen him before. It was all from last time. Isn't this Secretary Xia's brother? Xiao Yitu? How did you meet each other?" Xia Jinyuan, who got out of the car one step later, smiled at the chief of the traffic bureau who recognized him and said, "Hello, Chief Yang. I'm Secretary Xia's cousin." I know you. Last time, you and Xiao Yi." Chief Yang looked back and forth between the two of them. He slapped his forehead and laughed. That's right. Last time, Secretary Xia looked for you first, and then you brought Xiao Yi over. Look at me, I got confused. You two know each other." Chapter 926. The three of them chatted as they entered the police station. They headed in the direction of the surveillance room that Yi Qian and Xia Jinyuan had gone to last time. Yi Qian said that he saw a silver-gray car, but there was no silver-gray car on the highway or at any of the intersections where the accident happened. There were no surveillance cameras installed at the scene of the accident, so the only person who could find the car that was acting strangely last night was Yi Qian. The workers at the repair shop were very sure that every wheel of the car was carefully checked. There was not a single nail in it, and the nails used in the wheels were the most common ones on the market. Even repair shops used them, so there was no way to trace where the nails came from. Old Guan's friend said that Old Guan is usually kind and never quarrels with others, so he doesn't have any enemies. Yi Qian carefully watched the video on the surveillance camera. The officers at the police station reported their findings to Xia Jinyuan, and Yi Qian could also hear them. The video switched very quickly, starting from the moment Old Guan's car appeared in Hongkou City. This video was sent by the Hongkou City Transportation Bureau. Director Yang was not present when Yi Qian watched the video last time. Now that she saw it, her eyes were filled with surprise. This kid is watching the video at a fast-forward speed? Can he see anything? Yi Qian stared at the video and asked Xia Jinyuan, "Is there a paint that can quickly repaint the color of the car? If there are no silver-gray cars passing by on the highway or at the intersection where the accident happened, is there a possibility of repaint?" "Why do you say that?" Xia Jinyuan looked up at Yi Qian, who had been staring at the screen. The video played very quickly, and all he could see was the light flashing on her face. The cold light on the screen made her expression look hostile. Yi Qian paused the video 5 minutes after Old Guan's truck passed by the highway. A milky white car appeared on the screen. Director Yang, who had been watching Yi Qian the whole time, took a deep breath. Not only was she watching, but she was also really paying attention to it. She even remembered the time when each image appeared very clearly. That was why she could freeze the image and enter the time accurately to the second. This wasn't called having a strong memory. It was more like having a super strong memory and reaction time. Yi Qian didn't notice Bureau Chief Yang's reaction. He started to talk about what he had discovered. This car followed Old Guan's car after he had lunch. Old Guan's car got on the highway at 3:12 p.m. yesterday, and this car also got on the highway at 3:22 p.m. At 10 o'clock in the evening, Old Guan drove the car to the service area to rest for 2 hours. This car also entered the service area to rest for 2 hours. At 12 o'clock, Old Guan continued driving. At 3 o'clock in the morning, he got off the highway and entered the auto repair shop. At 3:45 o'clock, he started driving again. At 4:21 o'clock, he got into an accident. Yi Jian pointed at the 4 images and said, "This white car can be seen at all the exits and exits of the highway." However, this white car disappeared after a while. I've looked at the electronic cameras at all the intersections and this white car has disappeared. The staff at the Public Security Bureau quickly recorded what Yi Qian said and gave detailed instructions. See if there was any white car that entered the nearby auto repair shop to be painted. Then ask. No, there's no need to ask. The car didn't enter the auto repair shop to be painted. They painted it themselves. Yi Qian said with certainty, "When I got out of the car to check the scene, I smelled gasoline and paint. Then a gray car appeared." Chapter 927. Spray paint the white car into a gray one, change the license plate, change the exterior, and leave without anyone noticing. Now there are 3 questions. First, who did Old Guan run into at lunch? Second, why did this car follow Old Guan's car all the way and suddenly spray paint it? Third, where is the car? Where are the people in the car? The investigation had to be handed over to the Public Security Department. The Traffic Department mainly cooperated. Fortunately, I asked you to come over. Otherwise, everyone would still be looking for clues. If you say so, the Public Security Department will be much more efficient. After walking out of the surveillance room, Director Yang sighed deeply. If it was really done by someone, this is murder. It was not as simple as murder. It was murder. Yi Jian nodded slightly and agreed, "That's true. Let's ask Old Guan's friends first and see if they know who Old Guan met at lunch." "Yi Qian, come here for a moment." Xia Jinyuan, who was talking to the police, was standing at the entrance of the traffic department. Yang Yin asked her to come over. "I have something to do here." Director Yang, who originally wanted to ask Yi Jian if she had time to go to his house for dinner, immediately said, "I'm afraid the Public Security Department wants you to help them again. After all, you're the first witness at the scene. Go now. You can contact me anytime if you need anything." Then he added, "Don't feel burdened. Just take it as a walk in the traffic bureau." Director Yang admired Yi Qian more and more. Acknowledging her as his goddaughter was a good idea. He would be happy to have such an outstanding daughter. Looking at Yi Jian's back as she strode towards the police, Director Yang sighed softly. It was a pity that Yi Jian's parents were no longer around. With such an excellent daughter, if they were still around, they would be very proud. When the time came and they really recognized Yi Jian as their daughter, their family would have to go to her parents' graves to pay their respects. If the underworld knew, they could be at ease. In the future, Yi Jian would be taken care of by the Yang family, and she would have a home. The white Mercedes-Benz started up. Yi Qian got in the car and immediately contacted G3. "G3, go to the provincial hospital on Zhongshan Road now. It's very likely that they came in 2 batches. The first batch entered Nan province at around 4:20 a.m. G3, who had taken a hot bath in the hotel and shaved his beard, immediately jumped up from the bed with 2 pistols in his hands. "I'll be right there." "Okay, Q King and I will rush over as well. The patient's room is room 07 on the 5th floor of the inpatient building." Who exactly did Old Guan meet at noon yesterday? He had to ask Old Guan's wife and friends, and they were all in the hospital now. On the way from the traffic bureau to the hospital, Yi Jian told G3 about the car accident she had encountered in the early morning, as well as the results of her analysis. If old Guan saw someone he shouldn't have seen, and it was really them, being silenced is something the mercenaries would do. The foreign mercenaries were originally here to kill people. In order to hide their whereabouts and their ill intentions, they did not feel any guilt in killing civilians. It was almost 6 o'clock when they left the transportation station. The sky was still a little light. When the car was halfway to the hospital, the street lamps lit up. It was already night. Chapter 9:28. The mercenaries who were lured into the mountains must still be searching the mountains. They won't dare to attack the hospital so brazenly. I'll get out of the car, and you and G3 will keep watch. In the car, Yi Qian's brain was working at full speed. But we can't rule out the possibility that they left someone in the hospital waiting for us to arrive. Since they dared to do such a thing, if it were me, I wouldn't leave immediately after making sure it was safe. I'll send someone to keep watch and see if I can lure you in. While waiting for the traffic light to turn green, Xia Jinyuan turned his head and looked over. His gaze was dark and cold as an arrow. You want to say that we can't rule out the possibility that they deliberately caused a car accident to lure us out? That's right. He lowered his eyebrows. The sharpness in his handsome face was just like the Xia Jinyuan that Yi Qian first saw in the depths of the mountains. He was calm, cold, and exuded the aura of a Mei sect. He couldn't hide his coldness. He couldn't hide his sharpness. When he looked up, there was an overwhelming murderous intent. That's right, it's possible. They're mercenaries, real mercenaries, mercenaries who work for the government. We can't rule out such an arrangement. He really didn't think of this possibility, but after her reminder, the possibility of it being true was very high. The police car arrived at the hospital a few minutes before Yi Qian and his men. After Yi Qian entered the hospital with them, Xia Jinyuan got out of the car. G3 waited in the hospital for 5 minutes. Did anything happen? Stepping into the hospital, Xia Jinyuan stood in the corridor and contacted G3. He hid in the darkness and adjusted his breathing and voice to be inaudible. Yi Qian is here. G3 was downstairs in the inpatient department. Yi Qian's figure came into sight with 2 police officers. Yes, I saw him. I didn't find anything on my side. Look at Yi. Before he could finish speaking, he saw G3's eyes turn cold. There's a situation. Someone is following Yi Qian. Someone is following Yi Qian. They're quite smart. Keep an eye out for a few. I'll go into the inpatient department and block them. There was nothing unusual at the entrance of the hospital. The inpatient department only had a front door and a back door. The front door faced the main entrance of the hospital, and the back door faced the street. It was very likely that they escaped through the back door. Xia Jinyuan observed the situation outside. His long, slender legs, dressed in a suit and leather shoes, walked elegantly into the hospital. At night, the hospital seemed to be almost the same as during the day. It was noisy, but it was much better after they came out of the outpatient department. When they arrived at the inpatient department, it was quiet and they could still hear the crickets chirping. She was wearing a hospital nurse's tail. However, she had only taken a few steps when a cold light flashed in Yi Jian's dark eyes. She had already sensed that someone was following her. After the interrogation, there's nothing else to do. There's no need to go to the bureau. Are you hungry? Do you want me to pack some fast food for you? There were 2 police officers accompanying Yi Qian. The police officer on her right was about 34 or 35 years old. He was thin, but had a pair of sharp eyes. He spoke at a fast pace and had a strong sense of rhythm. He was the team leader of this operation. He was the first person they met at the traffic station. Having worked together before, they felt less unfamiliar. The team leader who spoke to Yi Qian was very polite. When he spoke, it was as if he was negotiating with her. He didn't mean what he said. This was the charm of Yi Qian's personality. In her previous life, Yi Qian suddenly woke up from her muddle-headed days. She endured the hardships life gave her and gritted her teeth to survive. She was like a tenacious cattail. No matter how tough the environment was, she would live on with determination. Chapter 929. After a long time, even if her face was beautiful, it wasn't dazzling and resplendent. Instead, it was like a flower blooming in the morning dew, swaying with the wind, causing people to feel relaxed and happy. The charm left behind in her previous life settled in the charm of this life. In this life, she lived a colorful life, with a dazzling splendor to compete with the world. The two different kinds of charm poured out at different times, and the result was completely different. Just like now, her calm and leisurely aura made the police officers around her feel her calmness. They would be infected by her calmness and involuntarily put her in an equal position. They would discuss, and treat her as one of their own. Captain Feng, you're too polite. I'll go to the restaurant after I'm done with the questioning. Yiqian quietly walked closer to the captain who was talking to her and said, "Don't look back. Someone is behind you. Think of a way to contact the higher-ups to protect Old Guan's wife and friends." Captain Feng's gaze suddenly stopped. He said to his colleague beside him, "I'll go over and pay for their hospitalization fees. You go up with her first." "Why is it still our side paying? We paid 5,000 during the rescue, and now we're paying again." The other police officer did not notice and said helplessly, Okay, go. It's a matter of life and death. Don't talk about money. The family members should be here soon. We still need to arrange for the manpower." Yiqian listened to the two police officers talk and did not say anything. She did not need to say anything. She just quietly followed them. The inpatient building was not high. It was only 10 floors. There were 2 elevators and they moved slowly. She said to the police officer, "It's too slow. Uncle, let's take the stairs." Taking the stairs was more convenient to deal with Tail, who was wearing the hospital's uniform. These foreign mercenaries were really patient. They waited for her in the hospital. Not only were they patient, but they were also very cautious. They would not let go of anyone or anything that was disadvantageous to them. Yiqian was not surprised that a Tail had appeared in the hospital. The reason why he paid attention to her was probably because he was the first one who rushed to the driver when the accident happened. They were afraid that the driver would say something wrong, so they were so cautious that they would rather kill 1,000 innocent people than let one person go. The younger policeman was very patient with Yiqian. When he heard that, he even smiled and said, "Sometimes, it's indeed faster to climb the stairs than to take the elevator. But the stairs in the hospital are dark, and some of the lights are not on yet. You have to be careful when you walk. Don't bump into anything." The little girl had really helped them. She had made the whole case progress very quickly. Later, as long as they could ask Old Guan's friends about who Old Guan had met at noon and whether he had noticed the white car, the whole case could be considered to have made real progress. The Tail, behind them, obviously understood Chinese. As Yiqian and the others walked towards the stairs, the Tail quietly followed them with a lunchbox in her hand. There were not many people in the inpatient building, and there were even fewer people climbing the stairs at night. When they entered the stairwell, their vision suddenly turned dark. Yiqian, who had deliberately walked behind them, immediately closed the fire door. She said to the police officer who sensed something strange about Yiqian, "Someone is following me. Be careful of guns. Go upstairs and guard. Don't come down." These words really made one's scalp tense. They were not afraid of knives, but they were afraid of guns. The closed door opened less than 3 seconds after Yiqian finished speaking. A black shadow followed closely behind. The shadow quickly reached out to the wall, trying to turn on the lights in the corridor. Chapter 930. Yiqian, who had been hiding in the dark and concealing her presence, immediately made her move when the man raised his hand to close the door. The moment the door was closed, the light reflected off the door reflected a trace of coldness in her eyes. Her target was the gun in the man's right hand. His right hand, which had been holding the lunchbox, was now holding the gun. A gun was not a good thing. It was a dangerous and bad thing in the hands of the enemy. She had to either snatch it or kick it away. Yiqian did not intend to snatch the gun. She intended to kick it away. Kicking a gun away was a boxing skill. She would fight with whatever she could win until her opponent was dead. Yi Qian could be so ruthless when facing her enemies. These mercenaries who had chased Xia Jinyuan back to China would not be able to get anything out of them. And Xia Jinyuan did not expect to get anything out of them either. She was not joking when she said she would kill without mercy. She had to do it. The silver wire in her hand was like an agile snake. It wrapped around the man's right wrist at lightning speed. The man had been very vigilant, but no matter how vigilant he did not expect someone to suddenly attack him from behind the fire door. "You're asking for death." The South Asian man spoke in stiff Chinese. He gave up on turning on the lights and raised his right hand, which was bound by the silver wire, in an attempt to break the thing around his wrist. As soon as he exerted force, the South Asian man felt a sharp pain in his right wrist. He realized that the thing around his wrist could not be broken, and he did not need to exert force. If he exerted force, the thing would cut into his flesh even faster, as if it could break his wrist. The pain made him involuntarily release the strength in his right arm. However, Yi Qian's reaction was faster. She straightened the entire silver wire and kicked the man's right elbow. She did not kick him from the front, but from the back. She straightened the man's right arm and kicked his right elbow hard. Yi Qian held the silver wire tightly in her hand. She was not afraid that the man would be strong enough to drag her over with the silver wire. The best thing about the silver wire was that the harder it was wrapped around the person, the tighter it would become. "Who are you people?" she asked in stiff Chinese. "You are all Chinese soldiers, right?" Chinese soldiers. Seeing that they were suspecting that it was Chinese soldiers who had assassinated the religious leader, Yi Qian smiled coldly and replied in perfect English, "It's useless for you to know who I am. However, I can admit that I am a Chinese soldier." "That's right. You can think that she's a Chinese soldier. As for whether she is or not, and whether you believe it or not, that's your own business." Yi Qian answered the question honestly and did not lie. But this direct admission made the South Asian men suspicious. They suspected that the assassin was a Chinese soldier, and they also suspected that there were other countries involved. For example, the powerful countries in Europe and America. After all, China's military power was inferior to Europe and America's in every aspect, and the soldiers they trained were also inferior to Europe and America's. Their suspicions were more inclined towards Europe and America. "You are not Chinese soldiers." "No, Chinese soldiers are weak. You're strong." After the East Asian man finished speaking, his fist flew towards Yi Qian's body. The previous attack made the East Asian man realize that he had been careless, thinking that the girl he had targeted was just an ordinary student. Now that he knew that this seemingly ordinary girl had such powerful skills, it made him even more suspicious that she was not a Chinese soldier. It was impossible for China to train a student to be so powerful. Chapter 931. The Chinese soldiers are weak? The Chinese soldiers are weak? How dare a mercenary say that the Chinese soldiers are weak? Yi Qian was instantly filled with anger. G3 knocked on the fire door. 3 quick, 3 light, 2 quick, 2 quick, 2 light, using rhythm to scout the way. Yi Qian had been standing at the fire door the whole time. When he heard the knock, he quickly tapped the door with the tip of his foot and replied, "I'm fine here. I don't need backup." This was the first time that Yi Qian was going up against a real mercenary. Instead of being afraid, she was excited. She wanted to fight a real mercenary who didn't care about their lives and only cared about money. She wanted to step on the edge of death and fight for her country. After G3 heard the response, he said to Xia Jinyuan, who had been on the phone the whole time, "First floor of the inpatient department, West Corridor, 1-on-1. There's nothing going on here. It seems like they only sent one person to guard the door. They're just waiting for Yi Qian to come over." Xia Jinyuan, who was standing at the back door of the inpatient department, had a cold expression on his face. He said in a deep voice, "Take care of them. The real mercenaries are at least 5 times more aggressive than the mercenaries we faced in the no man's land." Afraid that Yi Qian would be at a disadvantage, Xia Jinyuan didn't want G3 to help her too early. He chose the safe and stable way to deal with it. He asked G3 to guard the door first, just in case. The voices inside stopped for a moment. Then, a man shouted fiercely. He was probably going to attack Yi Qian again. There's a problem with the door here. Wait for the maintenance staff to come over. Take the elevator. Someone wanted to go up the stairs, but G3 stopped him and politely asked him to leave. He also guarded the entrance to prevent anyone from entering recklessly and getting into trouble. The South Asian man's expression changed drastically after being attacked by Yi Qian. The pain from his wrist didn't make him let go of the gun in his hand. Instead, he used his right leg to attack fiercely. His desperate close-range attacks made Yi Qian's eyes freeze slightly. She quickly leaned her body outward and bent a little. A gust of wind like a razor blade brushed past her ear, and then she kicked the fire door with a bang. This time, the close combat was much more dangerous than before. The fire door was kicked up by him. Yi Qian's eyes darkened even more when he kicked it. Yi Qian, who had dodged twice in a row, clasped the opponent's ankle with both hands and twisted it fiercely as if she was twisting a fried dough twist. The South Asian man groaned in pain in the dark. A strong gust of wind came from the darkness. The South Asian man endured the immense pain and lifted his left leg to kick Yi Qian in the chest. He seemed to have pressed one hand against the wall. The mercenaries sent from overseas to infiltrate the Chinese side were all quite skilled. They had rich combat experience and were very capable. They were also paid to do things, so they fought with a fight-or-die mentality. The South Asian man's right leg was twisted so hard by Yi Qian that it felt like it was going to break. He quickly made a move to win. Yi Qian sensed that he was going to kick him with his left leg, so he quickly let go of his opponent's right leg and dodged to the side to avoid the attack that was aimed at his chest. Even though Yi Qian's reaction was fast, the South Asian man's left leg missed his chest, but it still kicked his shoulder. His entire right shoulder was kicked to the side. Yi Qian, who felt a sharp pain in his bones, clenched his teeth and didn't let himself make a sound of pain. This was the first strong opponent that Yi Qian had encountered. The immense pain in his shoulder constantly reminded him that his opponent was a mercenary whose hands were stained with the blood of countless people. They only did things for money. It didn't matter if the people who died in their hands were civilians. As long as they were a target, as long as they thought they were disadvantageous to them, even if they were civilians, they would still kill them. Chapter 932. Yi Qian's muffled voice could be heard clearly in the narrow stairwell. This kick did not make the other party relax. When his left leg was clasped by Yi Qian's hands again, the South Asian man's expression was like that of a ferocious beast that wanted to eat people. His expression was cruel and cold. Upstairs, the young police officer wanted to rush down to get his colleagues, but when he heard the sound of fighting, he quickly rushed back. The fire door on the second floor opened, and two people came in while talking. Chengdu hasn't done a skin test yet. Remember it clearly when you're changing shifts. The temperature of the patient in bed 6 has been abnormal since this afternoon. You have to report it to the night shift. These two nurses were preparing to change shifts. The young police officer who rushed down the stairs had no choice but to turn back. "I'm a police officer. Take the elevator." As he spoke, he stopped the two nurses with his left hand and opened the fire door with his right hand. He pushed the two nurses, who were confused, back to the safe zone. There couldn't be anyone here. They had to guard. Yi Qian had just said, "Guard upstairs." Guard upstairs for no other reason than to be afraid that someone would enter or leave. They were afraid of being accidentally injured. The other party was a dangerous person with a gun. The young police officer heard the sound of fighting and wanted to rush down several times, but because the fire door was not bolted, he had no choice but to stay and wait. He did not have a pager with him, so he could not ask his colleagues for help. He could only wait anxiously. "Interesting. You're not from the Chinese side. You've been following us, but you can understand Chinese." Stiff Chinese came out of the other party's mouth. It was ruthless, cold, and playful. Yi Qian smiled thinly and said in fluent Chinese, "I said I'm Chinese. Of course, Chinese citizens can understand what you're saying." "Haha, Chinese citizen?" The South Asian man wiped away the blood on his face that had been cut by something. He stared at the figure that blended into the darkness with a playful smile. The other party's fists and legs did not stop attacking even when he was talking. He could not shoot. Yi Qian did not give him a chance to shoot. In a battle of life and death, whoever had the upper hand would survive. Using words to distract her was really a useless method. The iron railing of the stairs clanged. Yi Qian used the silver wire to cut the man's wrist again. He then grabbed the man's left leg and slammed it against the railing. Then Yi Qian heard the sound of the gun's safety being released. The other party was planning to shoot. There was a soft sound. Yi Qian did not have the chance to think at all. She grabbed the man's left leg tightly with both hands and twisted it in the opposite direction. She raised her leg and attacked the South Asian man's crotch. She could not give him a chance to shoot. For any man, the crotch was the most sensitive part of his nerve endings. Even if the man was as strong as King Kong, he was still kicked by Yi Qian. His facial features were all twisted, and the safety of his pistol was off. It was so painful that his fingertips reacted half a beat slower. Bang! The sound of a balloon exploding in a sealed box came from the dark corridor. After the first sound, there was a second sound. He aimed at the man's right hand. Based on the sound of the man pulling the safety bolt, he knew where he was going to shoot. Chapter 933. With the second shot, based on the man's groaning in pain, the second shot accurately hit the man's head. The smell of blood gradually filled the air. Yi Qian didn't leave immediately. Instead, he pressed his body against the wall of the staircase. His breathing went from ragged to stiff as he pressed down. "I told you, I'm Chinese. Unfortunately, you didn't believe me. You're in my country, so why would I lie to you?" Amidst the ragged breathing, Yi Qian smiled faintly and told the mercenary in all seriousness, "Our country won't allow you to enter like this. Since you're here, naturally, you won't be allowed to leave. What's the harm in telling you that I'm Chinese? Do I need to lie? Do I need to be afraid of you? Do I need to change my identity? I don't need to lie. I'm a Chinese citizen. I don't need to be afraid of you. The country you're standing on is Chinese territory. I don't need to change my identity. You won't leave my country alive." The mercenary on the ground had his eyes wide open. He had been shot in the head, but his central nervous system hadn't been completely cut off. His heart was still beating slightly. As for whether he could hear Yi Qian's words, it was unknown. The police officers upstairs were about to come down when they heard the gunshot. The unbolted fire door on the second floor was suddenly pushed open. Another nurse rushed in with hurried steps. The police officers, who had already taken 2 steps down, had no choice but to go back for the second time. Without another word, they pushed the nurse out. "The police are working on a case. Go back." As he warned in a low voice, a second gunshot rang out. The nurse was somewhat displeased. "What are you doing? Why are you working on a case in the dark? Are you playing with balloons?" Yi Qian's KP-7M8 was equipped with a silencer. The sound it made was indeed similar to the sound of a balloon exploding. The young police officer's expression changed when he heard the nurse's dissatisfied mutterings. He glared at her and warned, "Don't come this way again. Take the elevator down." Because the elevator was too slow, the nurse who took the stairs wanted to say a few words. However, when she saw that the policeman in uniform had a very cold expression, she couldn't help but panic. She muttered, "Why are you so fierce?" Then, she turned around and went into the hall on the second floor. After the fire escape door closed, the second floor returned to normal. Yi Qian closed his eyes slightly and took a long breath before he said to the police upstairs, "Turn on the lights upstairs. It's been resolved." The smell of blood permeated the corridor. The body of the fallen mercenary was still twitching at first, but now it was completely motionless. The dim lights came on. Yi Qian glanced at the wall and turned on the corridor lights on the first floor. In the dim light, the South Asian man who was leaning on the stairs was hit in the forehead by a 9mm parabellum bullet. The bullet pierced through his brain, causing blood to continuously flow out from the back of his head. There was the sound of hurried footsteps coming down from above. When the young police officer saw this, he gasped softly. He then jerked his head up to look at Yi Qian. His eyes were filled with shock. This scene was completely unexpected to the police officer. When he heard the gunshot, his expression changed drastically. However, because of the nurse's appearance, he had no choice but to turn back. When he heard the second gunshot, his heart sank. He thought Yi Qian had been shot. Yi Qian looked up and saw the young police officer who was standing there in shock. He smiled and said, "The local police won't be involved here. Someone will come and take care of it. You go back first. Don't worry about this." Chapter 934. He raised his hand and knocked on the fire door to inform them that the cleanup was complete. A second later, G3 pushed the door open and entered. He lowered his head and came in. When he saw the scene in front of him, he raised his hand and gave Yi Qian a thumbs up. "Well done. You flatter me. Think of a way to clean it up first." Yi Qian gently twisted his right shoulder that was in pain from the kick. Fortunately, other than the dull pain, there wasn't any severe pain. He could move his joints flexibly, so there was no problem with a fracture. G3 didn't even look at the young policeman standing above. He nodded and said, "Just throw him into the crematorium. It's not a big deal." "Just throw him into the crematorium? It's not a big deal? How can it not be a big deal? Murder. This is murder. Murder, and it's not a big deal. How big of a deal is that?" "Ching Ching, how's the situation?" someone on the third floor asked in a low voice. Captain Feng, who was in charge of the car accident case, had brought his men over. They didn't realize how dangerous it was to follow Yi Qian, so they came down with their guns close to the wall. Ching Ching, the young policeman who had been at the scene, heard this and immediately said in a low voice, "Someone died. Captain, come down quickly." When Captain Feng and his colleagues heard Ching Ching's words, they quickly ran down the stairs. "When do you plan to show your face? Wait until Yi Qian leaves before you show your face?" G3 said calmly into the phone, then turned to Yi Qian and said, "Some people always like to show up last. You have to teach him a lesson when we get back." He looked like he was very pleased with himself. He really deserved a beating. If he didn't do it, he would leave it to Yi Qian to do it. Getting beaten up by his girlfriend. Didn't they say that beating was a sign of affection, and scolding was a sign of love? Let Yi Qian properly kiss and love. Yi Qian had always thought that this way of getting along with comrades was very good. The more they frustrated and hurt each other, the deeper their relationship would be. Hearing this, he chuckled and said, "Yes, I'll definitely teach him a lesson when we get back." Major Xia, who needed to be taught a lesson, pushed the door open and entered. He closed the door with a smile on his handsome face. His gaze first swept past Yi Qian. After confirming that he was unharmed on the surface, he raised his head and said to Captain Feng, "Captain Feng, we will handle this matter here. The bureau chief will contact Captain Feng about the specific reason. Can I trouble Captain Feng to bring Yi Qian to the ward first? I'll come over later." Captain Feng knew Xia Jinyuan's identity. He looked at the man with a bullet hole in the middle of his forehead and right palm and frowned. "This man is, the people we kill without mercy will not have anything to do with the local public security, nor can they have anything to do with it." Xia Jinyuan interrupted him calmly and added in a firm tone, "Only we can handle this. Please forgive us, Captain Feng." The staircase that was filled with the smell of blood was very quiet. Both sides looked at each other with a hint of not backing down. Yi Qian walked out and said, "Captain Feng, can we go up now?" In the end, Captain Feng gave in. He had no choice but to give in. How could he interfere when he couldn't? However, seeing that there was a murder case in front of him, he couldn't just leave because of his professionalism. Captain Feng glanced at the young soldier who was talking to him and asked worriedly, "Is he a citizen of our country?" He didn't look like he was, so it was better to ask for more assurance. "He's a foreigner who will cause trouble in any country he goes to." Xia Jinyuan's eyes flashed with a hint of coldness and murderous intent as he said, "He has been waiting in the hospital for someone." Chapter 935. When his gaze landed on Yi Qian, Captain Feng's expression changed. "You mean, the car accident?" "Yes, We still need to ask more questions. So, Captain Feng, please take Yi Qian upstairs as soon as possible. We will take care of this. Xia Jinyuan's cold expression told Captain Feng that this matter was not over yet. These bastards. Captain Feng gritted his teeth and cursed. He did not question Xia Jinyuan's words and whispered to Yi Qian, Xiao Yi, this way. We won't take up too much of your time. No wonder Xiao Yi appeared with Secretary Xia's cousin from time to time. It turned out that she often helped Secretary Xia's cousin. Secretary Xia's cousin was a border police officer. If he said that the person who was shot was a foreigner, it was highly credible. These bastards who dared to offend our country should be killed without mercy. After taking a few steps, Captain Feng said to his colleagues, You two stay here and clean up the bloodstains. Don't scare people. They could help clean up the scene, but they could not do anything else. After watching Yi Qian leave, Xia Jinyuan opened the fire door and pulled an ambulance cart into the corridor. He said with a faint smile, Someone always likes to appear at the end? Why does it sound like you're a tattletale? You must have heard wrong. I said someone likes to appear at the end. In order to prove his credibility, G3 nodded responsibly and said seriously, Yi Qian will praise you very much. Xia Jinyuan patted his comrade's shoulder and said meaningfully, I can understand. You're jealous. Don't worry, brother, I've said it before. Once my marriage is settled, none of you will be a problem. He walked up the stairs and grabbed the mercenary's jacket with both hands. He and G3 carried him to the ambulance cart and covered him with a blue cloth. They could be dragged out to solve the problem. The scene was left to two policemen. After they got water and a mop, Xia Jinyuan shook hands with them and thanked them. He then left with G3. Old Guan's wife's ward was on the 5th floor. The call from the director of the Public Security Bureau came quickly. Just as they reached the ward on the 5th floor, Captain Feng received a notice that the local police were not allowed to interfere with border matters in Nan Province. With this notification, Captain Feng was finally relieved. There were two policemen standing guard outside the ward. Yi Qian pushed the door open and saw Mr. Guan's wife lying by the bed in tears. Mr. Guan's two friends, who were his drivers, were sitting beside the bed. Seeing Yi Qian come in, old Guan's friend was first stunned, then he stood up and said excitedly, Sister-in-law, this is your daughter who saved you. Quick, sister-in-law, look, your daughter is here to see you. Old Guan's wife, whose eyes were filled with tears, looked up. When she saw Yi Qian, she struggled to get up. She recognized him. The doctor said that if the young lady had not risked her life to climb into the car to give Old Guan and Fordrip, she would not have heard Old Guan's last words. Old Guan said that he wanted to thank the young lady who saved them first, and that he would let her live a good life and raise their children. He also said that he could not take care of the family anymore and that she would have to work hard for the rest of her life. He also said that if there was an afterlife, he would be reincarnated to repay her. From when she woke up to when she got into the ambulance. She spoke intermittently until she gradually stopped breathing. A living person was gone just like that. Auntie, don't move. Yi Qian quickly held Old Guan's wife's shoulder and stopped her from getting up. Don't move. Rest well. Chapter 936. Old Guan's wife held her hands tightly and kept saying, Thank you. Yi Jian's eyes reddened as she thanked him through sobs. The pain of losing a loved one was the most unbearable pain. After crying for about 5 minutes, Old Guan's wife gradually calmed down. She wiped the tears on her face with her hands that were calloused from hard work and had fine wrinkles on her fingertips. My dear daughter, Old Guan said we must thank you properly. I don't have much ability, so I can only kowtow to you. My daughter, our Guan family will never forget your kindness. Old Guan's wife, whose eyes were red from crying, insisted on kowtowing to Yi Qian. Yi Qian was so scared that he hugged this down-to-earth middle-aged woman and said, Auntie, you can't kowtow to me. I'm not the only one here. There are many good people here. Please don't kowtow to me. I was just passing by and saw it. If I can help, I will. Old Guan's two friends said, That's what we should do, that's what we should do. We can't think of any other way to thank you, so we'll kowtow to you. We'll kowtow to you on behalf of the Guan family. Yi Qian could stop one of them, but there were 3 of them at the same time. He gave Captain Feng a look and stopped old Guan's chauffeur friends. Auntie, uncle, I'm here because I have something to ask of you. There's no need to thank you, but I need to know something from the 3 of you. Yi Qian could calm old Guan's wife and 2 friends down. What happened yesterday afternoon? It's nothing. The 3 of us were together. We had our meals together. We didn't dare to go far after loading the goods in the car. Old Guan's friend, chauffeur Tian, recalled what happened yesterday afternoon. We had fast food during lunch break and delivered some food to the chauffeur. That's all. Did Uncle Guan leave during the lunch break? Or did he go out alone? Like fetching water? Or going to the bathroom? Yi Qian's questioning was no worse than the police. He asked in detail, or did someone talk to him and ask for directions? And after lunch, is there anything wrong with Uncle Guan? Driver Tian and another driver with the same surname, Guan, shook their heads in unison. I don't see anything wrong. It seems to be the same. Old Guan is a man of few words. We can't tell what's on his mind. Mr. Guan's wife thought about it. She was too overwhelmed by grief to remember, but she was Mr. Guan's wife, the person closest to him, so she was able to recount it more fully. Something's not right. Something's not right with Mr. Guan. Yi Qian's spirits were lifted. He didn't rush her. He just looked at her quietly, waiting for her to break away from her sadness and recall the warmth of yesterday. Something is not right. Old Guan came out of the bathroom and pulled me into the car. Old Guan's wife tried to recall what had happened the day before and how she had spent time with her husband. Then, he recalled that something was wrong with Old Guan. He came out of the bathroom and dragged me into the car. I didn't even finish my mantou or take a jar of pickled vegetables before he dragged me into the car. The first time he said, dragged me into the car. The second and third time he said, dragged me into the car. The latter was more urgent, fast, and hurried than the former. It could even be said that he was panicking. Chapter 937. If that was the case, Old Guan had met someone in the washroom, someone who made him feel threatened, and something that could have cost him his life. Last night's car accident happened because of the person and the incident. Auntie, did you see anything else? What did I see? He got in the car and left. I was complaining that I didn't take the pickles and that I had to get out of the car. Old Guan didn't allow it and said that he had to leave quickly. When Old Guan's wife mentioned this, chauffeur Tian and chauffeur Guan both thought of the same thing. Old Guan bumped into the mercenaries in the washroom and saw something he shouldn't have seen. He didn't understand what the mercenaries were talking about. Only when he saw something did he get into trouble. After leaving the hospital, Yi Qian got into the car and said coldly to Xia Jinyuan, "What do men do when they go to the washroom?" Xia Jinyuan, who was listening attentively, almost stepped on the accelerator when he heard her question. What do men do when they go to the washroom? She asked very seriously, so he had to answer seriously too. When men go to the washroom, they have to stand up. Everything else is the same as you guys. They have to stand up and take off their pants. Yi Qian analyzed seriously. What else did they have to do after taking off their pants? And what would Old Guan see? What would he see? Xia Jinyuan raised his hand and scratched his eyebrows slightly. He added, sometimes, they have to lift their clothes up a little, like a shirt tucked into their pants. We have to pull them out and unbuckle their belts before we start. Discussing with his little girlfriend how men go to the washroom and what they do when they go to the washroom. No matter how serious Xia Jinyuan was, he couldn't help but feel a little strange. The gun fell off. Yi Qian didn't notice Major Xia's strange expression. When she heard him say that they had to pull up their clothes and unbuckle their belts, her eyes immediately lit up. Her eyes lit up so much that Xia Jinyuan, who was driving and looking at her from the corner of his eye, held his breath and exhaled gently. Then he calmed down and said, "It's very likely." At noon, Old Guan and the others were resting at a place soon after they got on the highway. They needed to reorganize their weapons in the washroom when there were fewer people around. Old Guan suddenly barged in. This is also possible. However, The possibility of the gun falling out is high. This kind of thing had happened before, so the possibility was higher. Regardless of which possibility it was, old Guan did run into the mercenaries who were chasing after him. Unfortunately, he was killed. The topic was always heavy. When Xia Jinyuan drove the car out of the city and rushed to the winding mountain road, he stepped on the accelerator to the maximum. The car even left a long shadow, leaving a flashing red tail light shadow. Let's go to the mountains. The informants left by the hospital are missing. They will definitely take action tonight. There was an abandoned house in the mountains. Xia Jinyuan stayed there for a few hours and left some things behind. He left some food that would bring him back, such as instant noodles, candles, a lighter, and a piece of moisture-proof cloth. The items left behind were enough for the foreign mercenaries who liked to wait for their prey. Little Fox, it's just the two of us tonight. Are you scared? The car drove out of the city and into the suburbs. Xia Jinyuan, who was driving silently, reached out and held her hand. He whispered, I don't plan to ask G3 for help. Stay in the hospital. G3 had to stay in the hospital just in case. They would not allow foreign mercenaries to hurt their citizens again. They would not let another tragedy happen. G3 had to stay in the hospital. Chapter 938. Yi Qian had always agreed with Xia Jinyuan's arrangements. Even G3 had agreed, so what else could she say? His arrangements were indeed very good. Protecting old Guan's wife was also what she wanted. After the intimacy during the day, Yi Qian slowly let go of the shackles in her heart. She held his slender and strong hand and smiled lightly. Don't be afraid. We have guns and people. This is still our country. I'm not afraid. With you by my side, I really don't have to be afraid. From what I know, there are about 6 of them. After eliminating one in the hospital, there are still about 5 left. Our chances of winning against 5 are very high. Xia Jinyuan talked about the situation on his side and G3's side. The 5 of them don't have any heavy weapons. Like us, they mainly use pistols. We're used to fighting at night, and so are they. Little Fox, the real battle is about to begin. Yi Qian raised his eyebrows. After the battle, his hot-blooded personality had already been stimulated. His raised eyebrows carried the coldness of a soldier. Even the words that came out of his mouth were tainted with gunpowder. I'm looking forward to it. I want to get rid of them even more. They harmed our country's citizens. If the lives that they lost couldn't be redeemed, then their blood would be used as a sacrifice for the lives that they lost. The mountains at night were exceptionally quiet. Even the flapping of the night bird's wings was a sign of peace. The car didn't drive into the mountains. Instead, it stopped at a spot that Xia Jinyuan had already chosen to hide the car. As the car turned off, Xia Jinyuan's phone vibrated loudly. He glanced at the caller ID and immediately picked it up. Brother Z. We've dealt with them. We cremated them and scattered their ashes in the river to feed the fish. Ho Z was in the villa on Mount Daliang. She was playing with a lighter in her hand. Laolu, Brother Z is really going to leave with you this time. You have to come back on your own. Xia Jinyuan's eyes narrowed slightly. He said calmly, Xia Yiwei is waiting for you, Brother Z. You should be able to go and snatch her back now. The location is at the usual place by the river. But Brother Z, if you're still in Mount Daliang, I wonder if you can make it in time? There was only a beeping sound from the phone. When Xia Jinyuan followed Yi Jian into the night, there was a huge explosion in the kitchen of Ho Zi's villa in Dalang Mountain. Not only was the kitchen destroyed, but there was also a huge pit under the kitchen. Half of the villa was destroyed. The huge shock caused the ground to tremble. The birds in Mount Dalang were so shocked that they flew away. The entire Mount Dalang seemed to have woken up in the middle of the night. The birds that were returning to their nests would flap their wings and fly away at the slightest movement. The pheasants in the bushes would also be disturbed by the slightest movement and would immediately make a goo-goo sound and flee. Yi Qian, who did not follow the mountain path, crouched down and followed Xia Jinyuan to the abandoned houses in the mountains. After 2 hours of climbing, they were only 2 kilometers away from their destination. The sky was dim, and the crows were cawing. Yi Jian stopped in the dark. She smelled the scent of a third person in the night. It had rained a few days ago, and it was autumn. The dense forest was filled with the smell of decaying vegetation. Yi Jian had been smelling this scent all along the way, so she was very sensitive to the sudden intrusion of a foreign scent. She gently tugged at Xia Jinyuan's clothes and gestured to him, who immediately turned around and pointed in their direction. She told him that there was someone in their direction. At 11 o'clock in the evening, the two of them exchanged hand signals and silently passed through the bushes. They stepped on the leaves as if they were stepping on a sponge. There was no sound at all. Not even the leaves and twigs made a sound. Their figures were like shadows that swept in four directions. Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.